History remembers a gunshot, a single echoing moment in the streets of Sarajevo, now the capital of Bosnia and Herzegovina. But the true cause of the First World War was not one bullet or one man. It was an entire civilization, locked in a chain reaction of ambition, fear, and machinery that no one could stop. This is the story of how the modern world built the perfect system for its own destruction. Welcome to Causality Deep Dive. Today, we uncover the hidden cause of World War I, the war no one wanted, yet everyone created. June 28, 1914, Sarajevo. The heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophie are shot and killed by Gavrilo Princip, a 19-year-old nationalist from Bosnia. Within weeks, the world's greatest empires would be at war. That's the story most of us know, but it's a myth of simplicity. As historian Christopher Clark, professor at the University of Cambridge and author of the acclaimed book The Sleepwalkers, wrote, "Europe's leaders did not march to war. They sleepwalked into it." Clark's phrase captures the essence of the problem. The people in power were not villains. They were trapped inside a system that made peace impossible. To understand that system, we must look not at kings or diplomats, but at machines, trains, telegraphs, and factories. By the early 20th century, Europe was transformed by the Second Industrial Revolution. Railways connected cities across vast distances, from Berlin to Paris, Vienna to Moscow. But those same railways that carried goods and people could just as easily carry soldiers and guns. Mobilization plans became mathematical masterpieces, rigid, timed, and absolute. In Germany, the Schlieffen Plan, named after General Alfred von Schlieffen, dictated a lightning-fast invasion of France through Belgium, a neutral country in Western Europe. The plan required minute-by-minute coordination of trains and troops. A single delay could collapse the entire strategy. In Russia, mobilization was slow and complex. The empire stretched from modern-day Poland to the Pacific Ocean, half the globe's width. Once Russia began to mobilize, Germany had to respond immediately or risk being surrounded. It was a system designed for speed, but not for thought. Historian Margaret Macmillan, professor at Oxford University and author of The War That Ended Peace, put it best. In 1914, mobilization was not a policy. It was a reflex. And reflexes, once triggered, cannot be stopped. But behind the railways lay an even deeper engine, economics. Before 1914, the world was more interconnected than ever. The London Stock Exchange financed projects in Asia and South America. German factories exported to every corner of the globe. The telegraph made information travel at the speed of light. Yet beneath this prosperity lay paranoia. Britain feared Germany's growing navy might challenge its empire, an empire that stretched from India to Africa. France feared Germany's industrial strength and wanted revenge for its defeat in 1871. Austria-Hungary, a patchwork of modern-day Austria, Hungary, the Czech Republic, and parts of the Balkans, feared national uprisings that could tear it apart. Every economic success looked like a military threat. As economic historian Adam Tooze observed, industrial progress had turned into a geopolitical arms race. Factories that once built locomotives now built artillery. Shipyards that once launched passenger liners now built dreadnought battleships. Modernity itself had become militarized. But machines do not start wars, people do. And in 1914, Europe was led by men both powerful and fragile. Kaiser Wilhelm II of Germany, grandson of Britain's Queen Victoria, was proud, erratic, and obsessed with proving Germany's greatness. He ruled from Berlin, yet felt constantly overshadowed by his British relatives. Emperor Franz Joseph of Austria-Hungary was 84 years old. He had ruled since 1848, a relic of the 19th century, facing a modern world he barely understood. And in St. Petersburg, Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, cousin to both Wilhelm and Britain's King George V, was indecisive, torn between family ties and political reality. Each man was trapped, not by destiny, but by systems they had inherited and could no longer control. As historian Niall Ferguson of Harvard wrote, the tragedy of 1914 was not malevolence, it was momentum. Once telegrams were sent, once orders were signed, the gears of war turned automatically. And so, when Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, a small kingdom in the Balkans that now lies in modern Serbia, the dominoes began to fall. Russia mobilized to defend Serbia. Germany declared war on Russia. France honored its alliance with Russia. Germany invaded Belgium to reach France, and Britain entered the war to defend Belgian neutrality. In a matter of days, the world's most advanced nations were locked in industrial slaughter. The same trains that had powered trade now carried millions to the trenches. Telegraphs that had connected continents now transmitted death orders faster than reason could intervene. As one French general later wrote, "We were prisoners of our own plans." The Great War was not the failure of leaders. It was the failure of systems that had outgrown human control. By 1918, Europe lay in ruins. More than 16 million were dead, and another 20 million wounded. The empires that had ruled for centuries, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, Russian, had vanished from the map. New nations emerged from their ashes: Poland, Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, fragile experiments in self-determination. But peace was poisoned from the start. The Treaty of Versailles imposed crushing reparations on Germany, sowing bitterness and economic collapse. Within 21 years, those seeds would grow into a second global war, even deadlier than the first. The world had rebuilt its machines, but not its wisdom. And today, we find ourselves in another web of interdependence. Global supply chains move faster than any 1914 railway. Algorithms trade trillions on markets in microseconds. Artificial intelligence can decide, in milliseconds, what humans debate for years. Once again, our progress has outpaced our control. One miscalculation, one digital mobilization order, could cascade across nations, economies, and networks before anyone has time to think. The story of 1914 is not ancient history, it's a mirror. As Margaret Macmillan warned, the greatest danger is believing the system will correct itself. It didn't in 1914, and it may not in our time either. So when we ask what caused the First World War, the hidden cause, we must look not for villains, but for momentum. The faith that progress would always lead forward until it didn't. The world of 1914 believed it was too civilized for catastrophe. That illusion died in the trenches of the Somme and Verdun. And it reminds us today, as our technologies grow faster, smarter, and more autonomous, that humanity's greatest risk may not be conflict, but complacency. This has been Causality Deep Dive. Next time, we'll follow another chain, from the Cold War to the F-35, and uncover how the race for innovation became the race we can't afford to lose. Subscribe, and don't just learn what happened. Understand why it happened.